There are moments in life, Capricorn, when the silence speaks louder than any betrayal. You feel it first, not in words, not in actions, but in your spirit. A tightening in your chest. A flicker of unease. A subtle knowing that something or someone is no longer aligned with your path. And you were right. Someone tried to poison your light. Not with rage, not with a knife, not even with words that could be quoted. But with doubt, with envy, with the quiet kind of sabotage that comes dressed as concern. They smiled at you in public, and yet in private, they planted seeds of your downfall. You didn't ask for this. You offered loyalty. You gave your heart. You stood beside them even when your own energy was running low. Because that's who you are, Capricorn, steady, strong, committed to those you care about. But what they did not understand was that you are not only protected by your own wisdom, you are protected by something greater. Divine justice saw what your eyes could not. And where you remained silent out of love, heaven moved silently out of protection. It didn't need to announce itself. It simply removed what no longer deserved access to your future. And now, the snake is gone. The shadow has lifted. But the question remains. What will you do with the freedom that follows betrayal? Will you rebuild? Will you trust again? Will you rise higher than ever before, or let the venom linger inside you? Because what I'm about to reveal in this video isn't just about what happened behind your back. It's about what's being rebuilt in front of you. And when you see it clearly, Capricorn, you'll understand why their exit was never a loss. It was a cosmic correction, a divine interception to protect everything you're about to become. Stay with me until the very end. What you're about to hear might just heal a part of you that's been quietly breaking for years. Part 1. The early signs you ignored, but your soul knew. There's something about you, Capricorn, that makes others think you're all logic and discipline. They assume your decisions come only from strategy, from intellect. But what they don't understand is that your instincts are as sharp as your ambition. You don't speak often, but you feel deeply. And long before the betrayal, long before the truth came to light, your spirit knew. It started subtly. Not with drama, not with arguments. Just a quiet discomfort that began to echo in your chest. You couldn't explain it. But after certain conversations, you walked away feeling more drained than supported. Something about the way they smiled. The way they encouraged you, but only when your dreams stayed small. The way their compliments always landed a little off, like they were reading from a script they didn't believe. You told yourself not to overreact. You convinced yourself to be gracious, to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because you are loyal by nature, and loyalty is not something you hand out lightly. So once you give it, you defend it. Even when your own soul is whispering warnings in the background. You stayed longer than you should have. You hoped the discomfort would pass. That your intuition was wrong. That maybe it was just your stress talking, or your mind playing tricks. But it wasn't. Your spirit wasn't confused. It was clear. What was happening wasn't paranoia. It was perception. You weren't imagining the shift in their energy when you started rising. You weren't wrong to feel something tighten in the room when you shared your victories. You weren't being dramatic when their silence felt louder than their applause. They were never truly celebrating you. They were tolerating you as long as you stayed in a version of yourself they could control. The moment you started stepping into more, they started stepping away emotionally, spiritually, energetically. Still, you chose peace over confrontation. Still, you gave them space to change. Still, you hoped. But the truth is, Capricorn, the mask doesn't fall all at once. It crumbles piece by piece. And deep down, you saw the first crack long ago. The light you carry has always unsettled those who refuse to awaken to their own. And rather than rise with you, they chose to dim you, subtly, softly, and with a smile. You noticed. You felt it. But you doubted yourself. Now, you understand. Life lesson: trust the whispers before they become wounds. Capricorn, your greatest mistake wasn't that you trusted them. It's that you ignored yourself. Betrayal doesn't always come wrapped in fire. Sometimes, it comes with quiet suggestions. A small tone shift. A hidden envy behind just joking. A spiritual erosion so slow, you don't see it until you're questioning your own worth. The lesson is this. When your soul whispers, listen the first time. You don't need proof to protect your peace. From now on, your discomfort is enough. You don't owe anyone closeness. You don't need evidence to create space. You don't have to wait for the betrayal to be obvious before you walk away. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are simply too rare to be surrounded by those who cannot hold your light. Part 2. The poison behind the compliments, how envy wears a smile. Capricorn, not every knife is sharp when it cuts. Some slide in gently, without resistance, without sound. And sometimes, the most dangerous betrayal is the one dressed as praise. They didn't attack you. They complimented you. But it was never about your light, it was about how close they could stand to it without being burned by the truth of their own shadows. You remember the compliments, don't you? You always work so hard, maybe too hard. You're so ambitious. I could never be like that. You're so focused, must be exhausting. On the surface, they sounded like admiration. But you felt something else underneath. Something you couldn't explain at the time. It was subtle, but real. They weren't admiring you. They were measuring you. And every kind word carried a quiet poison, one that wasn't meant to lift you, but to seed doubt within you. They used flattery as camouflage, and envy as fuel. Because the truth is, your success didn't inspire them. It exposed them. Your discipline made them feel disorganized. Your stability reminded them of their chaos. Your vision made their lack of direction unbearable. And instead of rising with you, they decided to dilute you. Not through direct opposition, but through whispers wrapped in warmth. That is how envy works when it doesn't have the courage to speak directly. It jokes. It teases. It smiles wide while subtly rearranging the boundaries of your worth. They'd say, "Don't work too hard," when you were close to a breakthrough. They'd say, "You've changed," right when you were finally becoming who you were meant to be. They'd say, "Be careful, success changes people," when what they really meant was, "Don't go further than me." And because you value loyalty, because you assumed the best in others, you listened. You softened. You slowed down. Not because you wanted to, but because somewhere deep inside, you didn't want to leave them behind. But Capricorn, you were never moving ahead to make others feel small. You were moving ahead because your soul demanded more. And they could feel that. They could sense your expansion before you even spoke of it. That's what threatened them the most. You didn't need to declare your power. You embodied it. And for those who live in fear of their own unrealized potential, standing next to someone who lives in their purpose is unbearable. So they poison slowly. Through friendly fire. Through just jokes. Through the kind of advice that isn't rooted in your best interest, but in their silent wish to keep you closer to their level. And here's the truth you need to understand now, fully and finally. They never hated you. They hated what you reflected back at them. Life lesson: when envy disguises itself as care, protect your frequency. Capricorn, you are not here to shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. The people who truly love you will never feel threatened by your growth. They won't mask jealousy as concern. They won't tie their affection to how small you stay. They won't love a version of you that only exists when you're struggling. True allies celebrate your rise without needing you to pause, apologize, or explain it. This is the lesson. If someone praises you in public but undermines you in private, believe their silence more than their words. You do not owe your light to those who fear its brilliance. You are not responsible for the insecurities others refuse to heal. You are not arrogant because you believe in yourself. You are not too much because you know what you're capable of. You are just, finally, becoming visible. And visibility terrifies those who benefit from your silence. From this point on, Capricorn, observe how people respond when you're doing well. That's where their truth is. Not in the smile, but in the energy behind it. And remember, when envy wears a smile, it's still envy. When advice comes from fear, it's not wisdom. And when someone tries to limit your light with loving words, what they really fear is your power finally turning on. Part 3. The mask slipped and the silence was divine. Capricorn, Betrayal rarely ends with a bang. It doesn't come crashing into your world like thunder. No, when the universe is involved, it ends in silence. Not because the pain is small, but because the truth is sacred. You see, when someone moves against a Capricorn, they rarely do it openly. They operate in shadows. They wait for moments when your guard is down. They test your boundaries in increments, just enough to avoid confrontation, but slowly enough to manipulate your trust. They wear a mask, one made of shared memories, shared laughter, and just enough warmth to disarm your caution. And then, something shifts. A moment. A glance. A sentence that lands wrong. A truth spoken accidentally. A pattern repeated one too many times. And just like that, the mask slips. Not violently, not theatrically, but unmistakably. That moment when you can no longer unsee what you've seen. When their energy no longer blends with yours. When you look at them and something inside you whispers, "You're not safe here anymore." Capricorn, this moment is not the collapse. It is the awakening. It's the sacred clarity you were waiting for. Not because you wanted proof to blame them, but because your soul was tired of pretending it didn't already know. What happens next? They don't always confess. They don't always apologize. In fact, many simply retreat. The energy breaks, and suddenly, they fall away. Some drift. Some disappear. Some even try to paint you as the one who changed. But don't let their silence confuse you. That's not confusion. That's consequence. It wasn't your reaction that removed them. It wasn't your confrontation that exposed them. It was divine timing. The universe doesn't need a courtroom to deliver justice. It doesn't need chaos to end cycles. It simply stops protecting the mask. And once that mask slips, nothing can return to how it was. The spell breaks. The fog clears. And the person who once walked beside you now stands in complete misalignment. This is what spiritual protection looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, but irreversible. Life lesson: when the truth arrives quietly, trust it loudly. Capricorn, your power isn't just in endurance. It's in your ability to recognize divine closure when it comes dressed as silence. You don't always get the apology. You don't always get the closure. But you do get the truth. And the truth is enough. The lesson here is simple but eternal. When the mask falls, do not help them pick it back up. You saw what you were meant to see. They left because their spirit could no longer stand in the light of yours. They left because divine justice doesn't argue, it reveals. And what you felt was not abandonment. It was elevation. Your frequency outgrew their manipulation. Your soul chose alignment over attachment. And the silence that followed? That wasn't loss. That was peace. Part 4. The energy shift: what leaves, what enters, and what awakens. Capricorn, when someone exits your life, especially through betrayal, it rarely feels like a blessing in the moment. It feels like a vacuum, a loss, an absence that echoes. But let me tell you something many never realize until it's too late. When the wrong energy leaves your life, it's not just a subtraction, it's a sacred space being cleared. And what enters afterward is never random. You may not feel it at first. The silence left behind by the person who tried to poison your light might feel deafening. Your days may suddenly seem quieter, your phone less active, your world slightly still. But stillness is not emptiness. It is transition. It's the moment when old energy is being cleared from your field. Not just their presence, but the emotional residue they left behind, the self-doubt, the second-guessing, the hesitation to shine. And then, something shifts. You wake up one morning and realize your thoughts feel clearer. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself. You no longer replay old conversations trying to decode hidden meaning. You no longer seek validation from someone who never celebrated your essence. That is the energy shift. You begin to return to yourself, not just the version of you before the betrayal, but a wiser, more aligned version. A version who now understands that not everyone who walks with you deserves to rise with you. You start to notice new people entering your field, individuals who see your power and are not threatened by it. You begin to attract experiences that match your true frequency, not the watered-down one you had to shrink into to keep the peace. And here's what awakens. Your vision becomes sharper. Your boundaries become clearer. Your creativity returns. Your spiritual clarity expands. And above all, your self-trust is restored. This is what happens when divine justice clears the room. You don't just lose someone. You find yourself. Life lesson: your energy is a gateway, protect it with discernment. Capricorn, you've learned how much energy matters. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Not every connection is meant to last. But more importantly, not every absence is a loss. Sometimes the most spiritual thing the universe can do is make someone fall away without needing your permission. No drama. No explosion. Just quiet removal. The lesson here is not just about betrayal. It's about energetic sovereignty. When your field is clear, your future becomes magnetic. What left you was never meant to survive in the vibration you're stepping into. And what's coming cannot arrive in a poisoned atmosphere. So honor the shift. Trust the quiet. Let the new energy rise within you. Because Capricorn, what awaits you next is not contaminated by the past. It is pure. It is powerful. And it is ready. Part 5. The inner war when the betrayal tries to live inside you. Capricorn, sometimes the hardest part of betrayal isn't what happened outside of you. It's what it awakens within. Because long after the mask has fallen, long after the snake has slithered out of your life, the venom can still remain inside you. It doesn't always show up as rage. Sometimes it disguises itself as doubt. As the voice that says, maybe I was the problem. As the fear that whispers, what if the next person does the same? As the silence you retreat into, not because you're at peace, but because you no longer feel safe to speak. This is the inner war. When the betrayal has ended, but its echo still follows you into your thoughts. When the person is gone, but their shadow lives in your decision-making. When you no longer hear their voice, but you've internalized their disapproval. And if you're not careful, Capricorn, you begin to betray yourself. You stop sharing your wins because you're afraid of attracting jealousy. You dim your light because you think being too successful is what drove people away. You suppress your intuition because last time, you ignored it and now you don't trust your ability to discern. This is how the wound deepens. Not from what they did, but from what you carry after they're gone. You begin to lose the most sacred thing of all, your relationship with yourself. Capricorn, this is not your fault. Your loyalty, your dedication, your ability to see the best in others, these are not weaknesses. These are spiritual strengths. But when twisted by betrayal, they can become vulnerabilities. And that's why the healing must go deeper than just cutting people off. The healing must reach the part of you that feels like you should have known better. The part of you that now doubts your judgment. The part that wants to build again, love again, trust again, but can't stop looking over its shoulder. Life lesson: if you don't release the venom, you become its host. Capricorn, hear this clearly. Their betrayal should not become your identity. Yes, they wounded you. Yes, they masked their envy as care. Yes, they left when you needed them the most. But the longer you replay their actions, the longer you stay tethered to their energy. And that's the true danger, not the betrayal itself, but the part of your soul that starts living in fear of it happening again. You are not here to walk this life armored in suspicion. You are not meant to bury your softness just to avoid future pain. You are not meant to punish the next person for the sins of the last. Because Capricorn, when you do that, they win. Not because they're still present, but because they still influence how you show up. The real freedom is not in proving them wrong. It's in no longer needing to. It's in reclaiming your peace. It's in choosing to rise with your heart intact. The snake is gone. But now the work is internal. You don't just need to survive the betrayal. You need to remove its echo from your nervous system, your spirit, your self-worth. That's where your power lives. And that's where we go next. Part 6. Rebuilding the inner fortress, trusting yourself again without closing off. Capricorn, when you've been betrayed, especially by someone you let close, it's tempting to build a wall so high that no one ever gets in again. It feels safer that way. controlled, predictable, protected. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. The wall you build to keep pain out also traps your light inside. You weren't born to be cold. You weren't designed to walk through life guarded like a fortress under siege. Your strength isn't just in how much you can endure. It's in how much you can feel and still choose to rise. But in the aftermath of betrayal, trust doesn't return easily. Not in others. And sometimes, not even in yourself. You second-guess your instincts. You replay the signs you missed. You criticize yourself for letting them in, for not seeing through the smile, for giving too much of your loyalty, your time, your love. That inner judgment can be just as cruel as the betrayal itself. But Capricorn, listen closely. Your capacity to trust wasn't your weakness. It was your purity. And your intuition. It didn't fail you. You didn't ignore it, you overrode it, because you wanted to believe in someone. That doesn't make you naive. That makes you human. So what now? How do you rebuild trust, not just in the world, but in yourself, without becoming cold, bitter, or suspicious of everyone who enters your life? The answer isn't to close the gate. It's to strengthen the core. You see, real protection isn't in shutting down. It's in learning the difference between intuition and fear, between a boundary and a wall, between a warning sign and a trigger. You begin by returning to your inner knowing, the part of you that did sense something was wrong. This time, you listen sooner. This time, you trust the shift in energy, even before the mask slips. This time, you ask, does this connection feel clean, or does it come with confusion? You stop making excuses for others' patterns. You stop staying in rooms that make your spirit whisper warnings. You stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. And slowly, you begin to trust again, not everyone, but yourself. And when you trust yourself again, something beautiful happens. You become discerning without becoming detached. You remain open without being exposed. You love wisely, not fearfully. And your energy no longer invites poison disguised as partnership. Life lesson. True strength isn't armor, it's inner alignment. Capricorn, your fortress was never meant to be built out of stone. It was meant to be rooted in clarity. Because the world doesn't need a version of you that's numb. It needs the version of you that is wise and open, grounded and radiant, protective and still capable of intimacy. The lesson is this. Trusting again doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means honoring what you learned. You are not rebuilding to go backward. You are reclaiming your power to move forward with discernment, with strength, and with peace. The betrayal did not destroy you. But now it's time to release its grip on your identity. You are not a wounded version of yourself anymore. You are a wiser, more powerful, more intuitive version. And the world needs that version, not the one hiding behind a wall. Part 7. The Sacred Distance, Why Separation Was a Divine Intervention, Not a Punishment. Capricorn, not every departure is a punishment. Some are divine protection in disguise. When someone exits your life, especially someone who once felt close, essential, or irreplaceable, it can feel like the world is folding in on itself. The silence they leave behind is deafening. And even when you know they were harming your spirit, there's still a part of you that asks, why did this have to happen like this? But here's a truth you must hold close. You didn't lose them. They were removed. Not because you were unworthy, not because you failed, but because heaven stepped in where your loyalty held on too long. The universe watched you pour into someone who drained you. It watched you second-guess your worth just to make them feel secure. It watched you compromise your rhythm to accommodate their resistance. And finally, the universe whispered, enough. Capricorn, separation is sacred when it happens to preserve your purpose. Because your light is not meant to be dimmed to maintain connections built on imbalance. You may not have had the strength to walk away. But divine intervention does not wait for your strength. It arrives to protect your destiny on time, every time. And when the separation comes, it may feel like everything is breaking. But what's actually happening is alignment. The energy that could not walk with you into your next chapter has been cleared. The one who tried to poison your light has been gently, quietly removed. Not because the universe is cruel, but because your future is too sacred to allow contamination. You are being realigned with your higher path. A path where peace isn't earned through suffering, where love isn't conditional on silence, where support doesn't come wrapped in jealousy. Yes, it hurts. But pain is not always proof that something is wrong. Sometimes pain is the cost of growth, of outgrowing, of becoming. And when the universe creates distance, it doesn't explain itself with thunder. It simply withdraws what no longer resonates. Not out of punishment, but out of divine preservation. You didn't fail because someone left. You were protected because they couldn't walk any further with you. Their role in your story was finished. And keeping them would have destroyed the chapter that's now unfolding. Life lesson: let go with grace, and you make space for destiny. Capricorn, holding on to what was never meant to stay is the fastest way to delay what was always meant to arrive. Sacred distance is the hand of destiny clearing your path. When something or someone is removed without warning, trust the silence. That silence is heaven stepping in. That ending is an answer to a prayer you may not even remember whispering. That space is not empty. It's preparation. Let go. Let go of needing closure. Let go of rewriting the past. Let go of asking why they couldn't love you right. The truth is, they were never meant to stay. And your alignment, your true destiny, required their absence. So instead of asking, why did they go? Ask this: what is now being allowed to come in? Because what's ahead of you will not require betrayal to teach you love. It will not require sacrifice to feel safe. It will not poison your light. It will recognize it and rise with it. Part 8. The return of self. You were never broken, only becoming. Capricorn, after betrayal, after the silence, after the space has been cleared and the venom drained, there comes a moment. Not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakable. It is the moment you remember who you were before they tried to rewrite your worth. It is the return of self. The quiet, undeniable reawakening of your true identity. Not the identity shaped by pain, but the one that existed before the wound. You were never broken. You were becoming. They didn't see it. They misunderstood your silence as weakness. They misread your discipline as detachment. They thought your calm meant you didn't feel. But what they didn't realize is that transformation often happens in stillness. You weren't losing yourself. You were shedding. And now, with the weight gone, with the voices silenced, with the old energy dissolved, you begin to rise again. But this time, not to prove a point. Not to make them regret what they did. Not to fill the silence they left behind. This time, you rise for you. Your movements feel different now. More rooted. More intentional. Your vision feels clearer because it's no longer clouded by trying to carry those who never truly supported your rise. You are no longer chasing validation. You are no longer waiting for closure. You are no longer shrinking to protect others' insecurities. You have returned to your light, to your truth, to your inner mountain. And what you find at the top isn't applause, it's peace. Because now, you no longer need the world to understand why you had to let go. You no longer need to justify the boundaries you've built. You simply exist in power, in clarity, in quiet alignment. You are not the same. But that was always the point. Life lesson: you were never meant to stay small to be accepted. Capricorn, what they mistook for your downfall was actually your becoming. You were not broken by the betrayal. You were broken open so your true self could breathe. Let that land. You were never meant to go back to who you were. That version of you did not yet know how to protect their peace. That version of you tolerated things that violated your spirit. That version of you confused silence with safety. But now, you are grounded. You are awake. You are aligned. You do not need to explain your evolution. You do not need to apologize for your light. You do not need to revisit the past to validate your progress. You've returned, not to the world's expectations, but to your soul's design. And from this place, nothing that is not meant for you can stay. Nothing that is not true can hold power over you. And no one who carries poison will ever again have access to your peace. This is the return. This is the revelation. This is who you were always meant to be. Part 9. The final cleanse, declaring alignment over your life. Capricorn, this is the moment. The storm has passed. The shadow has been named. The silence has done its sacred work. And now, you stand at the threshold of something new. But before you walk forward, there is one final step. A step that must come from you. Not from the universe. Not from the past. Not from the pain. It must come from your decision to release what no longer belongs in your spirit. Because even after the snake is gone, even after the betrayal has been exposed, even after the wound begins to heal, there can still be residue, resentment, bitterness, fear. A part of you that still lives in the memory. A part of you that still expects the next person to carry the same poison. A part of you that holds back your light, just in case. Capricorn, you've carried that long enough. And now, you choose something different. Not because you forgot what happened, but because you refuse to let it define your frequency. This is the final cleanse. Not of your past, but of your attachment to it. You are not the betrayal. You are not the venom. You are not the version of you who was dimmed to survive it. You are the soul who stood back up. The spirit who burned through the fog. The mountain that rose again, clearer than ever before. And now, you declare, I choose alignment. Say it out loud. Whisper it. Type it. Let every part of your being hear it. Let the past hear it. Let your future feel it. Let the universe record it. I choose alignment. Say it again. Not as an escape, but as a return. To your clarity. To your calling. To your clean energy. To the version of you that no longer performs strength, but embodies it. You are no longer carrying people who cannot walk beside your vision. You are no longer explaining your light to those committed to misunderstanding it. You are no longer tolerating relationships that cost you your peace. This is your affirmation. This is your declaration. This is your alignment. Life lesson. Alignment is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. Capricorn, you've learned that betrayal is not just about what was done to you. It's about how you rebuild after. It's about who you choose to become now that you've seen the truth. And most importantly, it's about who you no longer have to be. You don't need to shrink to survive. You don't need to be guarded to be wise. You don't need to carry pain to prove you've grown. You are aligned now. And that alignment will protect you more than walls ever could. So let it be known. You didn't just survive what tried to break you. You became the version of yourself that was too powerful to stay broken. And from here forward, you walk with clarity. You love with discernment. You speak with truth. You stand with peace. Because you are no longer hiding your light. You are finally walking in it. Conclusion. The path ahead, what awaits the aligned Capricorn soul. Capricorn, if you've made it this far, then you already know. This wasn't just a message. It was a mirror. A reflection of everything you felt but couldn't say. Of everything you sensed but couldn't prove. Of everything you survived. And now, everything you're becoming. You've walked through the betrayal. You've endured the silence. You've cleared the poison. You've chosen alignment. And now, the path ahead is no longer clouded by confusion. It is carved by clarity. You don't need to look back anymore. You don't need to wonder what would have happened if they had stayed. Because what's coming for you now is not connected to who hurt you. It's connected to who you've become because of it. What awaits you? Relationships that feel clean. Opportunities that align with your true values. Peace that doesn't have to be earned through suffering. Self-trust that doesn't shake with others' opinions. And most of all, a life where your light is not just protected, but celebrated. Capricorn, you are not who you were at the beginning of this video. You are more honest, more grounded, more awake. This isn't the end. This is the entrance to a life where you no longer negotiate with your worth. Where you no longer make space for what disturbs your spirit. Where you walk in divine alignment on purpose, with purpose. So say it again, one last time. I choose alignment. Not once. Not temporarily, but as a way of life. Your invitation. If this message spoke to your soul, don't let it end here. Leave a comment below. I choose alignment. Let it be your declaration to the universe. Let it be a sacred seal over your path. And if you want more messages like this, more truth, more healing, more power for the Capricorn soul, subscribe now to Zodiac Secrets Revealed. Because your journey is far from over. This is only the beginning. And your soul deserves to walk with wisdom.